Leopold Fitz.
A name whispered in hushed tones, a name that carried weight and mystery, a name synonymous with both brilliance and terror, a duality that few could comprehend. He was once a young, eager scientist, brimming with the naive hope of changing the world for the better. His eyes sparkled with dreams, his hands steady with purpose. But the world had a way of twisting even the purest intentions. The city, with its relentless pace and unforgiving nature, had a way of wearing down even the most resilient souls. He had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had stared back. The darkness within him grew, fed by the shadows of his failures and the weight of his ambitions. It had carved a piece of him away, leaving behind a void filled with something cold, calculating, and ruthlessly efficient. The warmth of his humanity was replaced by the chill of logic and precision. They called it the Doctor, a title that evoked both respect and fear, a moniker that became a legend in its own right. The Doctor wasn't a separate entity, not exactly. It was a part of Fitz, a darker, more ruthless side that he had tried to suppress but ultimately embraced. It was more like a fractured reflection of Fitz himself, a manifestation of his darker impulses and his willingness to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. The lines between right and wrong blurred, and the ends began to justify the means. It was the part of him that could compartmentalize, that could justify the means by the end, no matter how brutal. The Doctor was the embodiment of his relentless drive and unyielding determination. The Doctor was a weapon, forged in the fires of trauma and desperation. Each spark, each flame, a testament to the trials he had endured and the lengths he was willing to go. And for a time, Fitz had wielded that weapon with terrifying precision. His actions were swift, his decisions calculated, and his results undeniable. The world saw the brilliance, but few understood the cost. In the bustling city, amidst the chaos and noise, Fitz moved with purpose. He was a man on a mission, driven by a vision that only he could see. His mind was a labyrinth of ideas, each more complex and revolutionary than the last. The blueprints he sketched were not just plans, they were glimpses into a future that he was determined to create. Day and night, he toiled in his lab, surrounded by the hum of machines and the glow of screens. His dedication was unwavering, his focus unbreakable. Yet, in the quiet moments when the world was still, Fitz would look back at the path he had taken. The faces of those he had left behind, the dreams he had sacrificed, haunted him. He stood at a crossroads, torn between the man he once was and the man he had become. The choices he made were not easy, and the consequences were far-reaching. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, Fitz found solace. The stars, distant and unchanging, reminded him of the bigger picture, of the dreams that still lingered in his heart. And so, with each step he took, Fitz continued his journey, a journey of redemption, of discovery, and of hope. The prodigal engineer, forever seeking, forever striving. The world had changed dramatically. Technology, once a beacon of progress, had become a runaway train, hurtling humanity towards an unknown and uncertain destination. The lines between the digital and the real had blurred, leaving society fragmented and lost in a sea of overwhelming information overload. Empathy had become a liability, a perceived weakness to be exploited. Human connection was fading away, replaced by a cold digital facsimile. The very essence of what it meant to be human was slowly eroding. The consequences were everywhere. Social structures crumbled under the weight. Violence erupted in the streets. Chaos reigned. Governments struggled to maintain control, resorting to increasingly draconian measures. The world was teetering on the brink, a powder keg waiting for a spark to ignite. And in the shadows, Leopold Fitz watched, his mind racing, his heart heavy with the burden of knowledge. He knew he couldn't stand idly by, he had to act no matter the cost. Fitz had always been different. From a young age, he was the child who preferred solitude, often found lost in his own world of thoughts and ideas. While other children played, he would be engrossed in books, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. His mind, a labyrinth of intricate thoughts and complex equations, worked on a level few could comprehend. Teachers marveled at his abilities, but they also worried about the isolation that came with such brilliance. He saw patterns where others saw chaos, possibilities where others saw only despair. To Fitz, the world was a puzzle waiting to be solved, each piece a challenge that he eagerly embraced. But his genius was both a blessing and a curse. The very intellect that set him apart also isolated him, creating a chasm between him and the rest of the world. He often felt like an outsider, burdened by the weight of his own mind. It allowed him to see the world with breathtaking clarity, but it also burdened him with the weight of its problems. He could not turn a blind eye to the suffering and chaos around him. Every flaw, every inefficiency, every injustice was glaringly obvious to him. He saw the fragility of it all, the intricate web of interconnected systems on the verge of collapse. The more he understood, the more he realized how delicate the balance was, and how easily it could all fall apart. The guilt gnawed at him. He felt responsible for the world's problems, as if his knowledge came with an obligation to fix everything. The weight of this responsibility was almost too much to bear. He had played a part in this. His inventions, his breakthroughs had been twisted, corrupted, used to fuel the very chaos he now sought to quell. The realization that his work had been used for harm was a constant source of torment. His inventions, his breakthroughs, had been twisted, corrupted, used to fuel the very chaos he now sought to quell. He had once believed that his work would make the world a better place, but now he saw the unintended consequences of his genius. The doctor whispered in his ear, a constant reminder of his past sins. This voice, a manifestation of his guilt, never let him forget the impact of his actions. It haunted him, day and night, a relentless echo of his mistakes. But another voice, fainter, yet more persistent, urged him to atone, to use his intellect to heal the wounds he had inflicted. This voice, a beacon of hope, reminded him that redemption was possible, that he could still make a difference. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, a crushing responsibility that threatened to break him. Yet, within this burden, he found a sense of purpose. He knew that his genius, though a heavy weight, was also a powerful tool. It was up to him to decide how to wield it, to choose whether to be a force for good or to succumb to the despair that threatened to consume him. The plan formed in Fitz's mind, a dangerous gamble born of desperation and fueled by a flicker of hope that refused to die. He would use the doctor's methods, the very tools that had brought the world to its knees, to engineer a solution that could save it.
I would hack into the global network, rewrite the algorithms that governed their lives, subtly nudge humanity back from the brink of disaster. I would become the unseen architect, shaping their thoughts, their desires, their very perceptions of reality itself.
It was a slippery slope, he knew that. The line between salvation and tyranny was razor thin, but he justified it to himself, arguing that the ends justified the means. He told himself it was a temporary measure, a necessary evil to prevent a greater catastrophe. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a deal with the devil, embracing the darkness within him in order to fight for the light. FitzSimmons, the light to his darkness. She was the beacon that guided him through the murky waters of his own mind, the one who always saw the best in him, even when he couldn't see it himself, the anchor that kept him tethered to his humanity. In moments of despair, it was her touch, her unwavering belief in him, that pulled him back from the brink. She saw the good in him, even when he couldn't see it in himself. Her eyes, filled with trust and hope, were a mirror reflecting the man he aspired to be. But when he revealed his plan to her, a plan born out of desperation and a desire to make things right, the horror in her eyes was like a punch to the gut. It was as if the ground beneath her feet had crumbled, leaving her in freefall.
Fitz, this is wrong. This isn't the way to fix things. It violates everything we have ever fought for. You can't play God, Fitz. The consequences of such actions are beyond our control. The unintended consequences could ripple through generations. We have to think about the future, about the lives that will be affected by our choices.
Fitz listened patiently, his heart aching at the pain he saw in her eyes. He knew she was right, but he also felt trapped, cornered by the weight of his past mistakes. He explained his reasoning, his belief that this was the only way. He spoke of redemption, of a chance to undo the wrongs he had committed.
Gemma, I promise you I will be careful. I understand the risks, but I can't stand by and do nothing. I will never cross the line. I will make sure that what I do is for the greater good, and I will always keep your words in my heart.
But Gemma wasn't easily swayed. She had seen the darkness that lurked within him, the seductive whisper of the doctor that threatened to consume him. She knew the internal battle he fought every day, the struggle to keep his darker impulses at bay. It was a fight that left him weary and vulnerable. Yet she also saw the desperation in his eyes, the genuine desire to atone for his past. He was a man torn between his need for redemption and the fear of losing himself in the process. And slowly, reluctantly, she began to understand. She realized that his plan, though flawed, came from a place of deep remorse and a longing to make amends. They sat together, hand in hand, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. In that moment, they were just two souls seeking solace in each other. Gemma's gentle smile was a balm to Fitz's troubled heart. It was a silent promise that she would stand by him, no matter the challenges they faced. Together, they would navigate the uncertain path ahead, drawing strength from their bond and the love that had always been their guiding light. And as they walked into the sunset, hand in hand, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, united by a bridge of understanding.